Most welcome to the next video in our series about the IBCA World Championship Moscow 1986. And IBCA is an abbreviation for International Braille Chess Association. Louis Braille was the inventor of the writing system that most blind persons have used. At least 120, 140 years. He invented it, I think it was in the 1820s sometime. So, IBCA is the world organization for chess for visually impaired. Not only blind nowadays, but visually impaired as well. And I think it makes sense to go through a bit of our history, showing some of the games. Of course, it will be more on mine than on anyone else, because it is my channel and I know my games the better. But I try to also show other players' games. We are now back to round number 5. And before I forget it, please like the video and subscribe to the channel and share it if you so wish. That would help us to spread knowledge about the channel, which is so far as I know of at least, the only accessible for blind chess players on YouTube and on other social media. So, if you help us spread the word, so to say, about it, then you help the development of chess among visually impaired persons. So, we are back to round number 5. And if you followed the channel lately, you have seen the game Magnusson Chabarkaba from round number 4, which ended in a draw after an intense fight. So I had 2.5 out of 4. Not fantastic, not really bad either. 1 loss against the Soviet champion, 2 wins, and 1 draw against a strong player from Yugoslavia at that time. Now it came to a Nordic encounter between me and the Norwegian star at that time, Svein Tore Fesche. He was a strong player. I think he, as sighted chess player, reached somewhere about 2,200. When we played in 1986, I think, he had a strength for 2,100, I would say. So, not a bad player at all. And we had played some games. First time in the Nordic Championship, I think it was in 1984, where I managed to win. And also I became Nordic champion for the first time. And if I recall, I became Nordic champion 1985 also. Maybe we actually agreed to a quick draw, because that would secure the title for me. 1986 though, now we are in Moscow. Another tournament, and Fesche is white. He kicks off with pawn to delta 4. Pawn to delta 4. I played knight to foxtrot 6. Knight to foxtrot 6. In this tournament, I often went for the modern Benoni as black. So I wanted to push Charlie 5 pretty soon. Later on in the tournament, I won a long battle against Graham Lilly with black. It should have been drawn, but I managed to trick him in the ending. Knight to foxtrot 6. White played Charlie 4. Pawn to Charlie 4. And here we come to crossroads. If I would have been going straight forward to the Benoni, I could have played pawn to Charlie 5, and white then would respond with delta 5, and after echo 6, knight Charlie 3, and then an exchange on delta 5, echo takes delta, Charlie takes delta. We have the starting position of the modern Benoni. But that move order would make it possible for white to push echo 4 and foxtrot 4 very quickly, which would give white a distinct advantage. Actually, I chose this move order to play more directly into that against this same Svein Tore Fesche in a tournament maybe some weeks after the World Championship, actually, in Norway. And I lost that game, not because of the opening, but I obtained a clearly inferior position and then went wrong and I got mated. That was the only game I lost against Fesche, as far as I recall. So you have to be careful with the move order when you play the Benoni. So I went for pawn to echo 6, pawn to echo 6. And that is probably the better way to do it, because if white now plays knight to Charlie 3, then black can go for the Nimzo Indian with bishop Bravo 4, or the transpose into Queen's Gambit declined with pawn to delta 5. But white played knight to foxtrot 3, knight to foxtrot 3. And here I think Charlie 5, as I played, pawn to Charlie 5, is a clearly better version of the Benoni than if I had played it with the knight on Charlie 3, because the knight on foxtrot 3 blocks the foxtrot pawn. So the setup with echo 4 and foxtrot 4 quickly cannot be used. Although I think theory nowadays, the Benoni has a slightly dubious reputation, but I have played it many years. I played it in the 1980s. Sometimes I play it just for fun in Blitz on lead chess, for example. And Benoni is a tricky game opening, little bit like the King's Indian. You can have a lost position and anyway suddenly you have won the game, because the positions get very double-edged and very sharp. So even if it is not used so much on the highest level, for a club player I think it is perfectly fine. Myself included in the category of club player, although I'm a little bit about 2200 FIDE rating nowadays. On my level I think I can also play it, but then rather with the knight on foxtrot 3 than with the knight on Charlie 3 move order. Alright, Fesche didn't want, I played Charlie 5, as I said, pawn to Charlie 5, and now white could have pushed pawn to delta 5, and we would have come into the Benoni after echo takes delta 5 and Charlie takes delta 5. So there we would have it. But Fesche went for a slightly more not so sharp approach. He played knight to Charlie 3, knight to Charlie 3. And here we then get a transformation of the pawn structure. As I played Charlie takes delta 4, Charlie takes delta 4. And white recaptured. Knight takes delta 4. Knight takes delta 4. And this position, I think it is about equal, maybe slightly better for white. I went for bishop to Bravo 4, bishop to Bravo 4. And as you can see, black might ruin white's pawn structure on the queen side by capturing on Charlie 3. Then white would have a doubled Charlie pawn and an isolated pawn on Alpha 2. Not good news for those who like healthy pawn structures. But at the same time, exchanging on Charlie 3 would mean weakening the black squares, especially the square delta 6. White could maybe jump with the knight to bravo 5 and then in on delta 6. So you have to be careful when taking on Charlie 3. You have to time it very well. Here, when I run Stockfish, I haven't checked this position for since very many decades behind in time. Of course, I've seen games with this line, but I not analyzed it carefully. I ran it a little bit with Stockfish 17, and Stockfish gives a slight edge for White if White proceeds with pawn to Golf 3. But Fesche went for a dubious continuation. Knight delta 4 to bravo 5. Knight to bravo 5. Sorry. And this is this is breaking the rule of not moving the pieces so many times, the same piece so many times in the opening. The knight has gone from Golf 1, jumped to Foxtrot 3, and it recaptured on Delta 4. Of course, that was the best move. And one can say that I also moved my Charlie pawn twice, Charlie 7 to Charlie 5, capturing on Delta 4. So that evens out each other. But now, White moves the knight a second time, and or a third time rather, and it protects its colleague on Charlie 3. That's of course a good thing about it. And the knight threatens to hop in on Delta 6, which would be very annoying. So, but at the same time, the knight is no longer in the center, and it has taken a bit of time. So, what you should do by black here, go for the natural moves. A good advice in general is to avoid weird-looking moves in chess. So play natural, and I went for pawn to Delta 5. Pawn to Delta 5. So, by this, I occupy the center a bit more with the pawn this time, challenging the pawn on Charlie 4, and I also control Delta 6. White went for Charlie takes Delta 5, Charlie takes Delta 5, and I recapture with the pawn, Echo takes Delta 5. Echo takes Delta 5. And you might wonder why I didn't capture with the knight. I simply think that the pawn on Delta 5 is isolated is not a big deal in this position. It also opens. I also opened the diagonal for my bishop on Charlie 8, and as you can see later on in the game, the pawn on Delta 5 will advance and become a real strength for black in the game. It will actually be the hero of the battle, I would say. So just play it simple by opening the diagonal from Charlie for the bishop on Charlie 8 and increase the control of Echo 4. Okay, White went pawn to Alpha 3. Pawn to Alpha 3. And again, this is a move that doesn't develop a piece. It was quite long now since White developed new pieces. I think it was actually when White played Knight Charlie 3. Pawn to Alpha 3 is not a horrible move, but it doesn't help White's development. Bishop to Golf 5 followed by Echo 3 would be for choice, I would say. Although black has a preferable position even then, at least equal for black. I think a slight edge actually. So after pawn to Alpha 3, I captured bishop takes Charlie 3. check. Bishop takes Charlie 3. And here white clearly went wrong by playing knight takes Charlie 3. Knight takes Charlie 3. And that looks very natural. White keeps the pawn structure harmonious, but white gives up the control of the delta 4 square. And that is very, very important. You can't violate the rules of chess as, there are limits to it. Bravo takes Charlie 3 was necessary in order to keep the control of the delta 4 square. But then white would remain with an inferior pawn structure, and black would even be ahead in development. So that would also give black a slight edge. But now it gets really tough for white. And note that we are only on move 9, and white has not played like a fool by any means. White is a strong player, but violating these rules about development and also now giving up the center to preserve the pawn structure, so that there were conflicting principles. It actually leads white into a position where white is really suffering. I pushed pawn to delta 4. Pawn to delta 4. So now the knight on Charlie 3 is threatened, and it goes to alpha 2. Knight to alpha 2. On alpha 4, one can say that it would look a little bit more active. One can say, but it actually risks getting trapped there. If black controls Charlie 5, then Bravo 5 can pop up, for example. Knight alpha 2 is not a fantastic position, but we can even debate whether or not the knight is developed. If it is not, then white has no developed piece, but the knight on alpha 2, no matter how we decide on that issue, it is not a well-placed piece. So I continue development by castling kingside. Castle kingside. And note now that black actually has a slight edge in development, but it will also be difficult for white to develop the pieces. It will take time because black controls a lot of very important squares, and that makes it necessary for white to lose time while trying to complete development. So often when you start to lag in development, it just increases. So white played pawn to echo 3, pawn to echo 3, and that is one of the things that I was referring to. White now had to move a pawn in order to try to develop, whereas black can develop all pieces without having to move any pawns. So it actually means that black is more than a tempo up in development. So I continued with knight to Charlie 6, knight to Charlie 6, and white went for Bravo 4, pawn to Bravo 4. And this is another error, understandable error, I would say, but still an error. From the principled point of view, you should now, as white, it's really highest priority to complete your development. You are already lagging. You can't make more pawn moves. Bishop to echo 2 was asked for, although black could easily continue with bishop to foxtrot 5 and maybe push pawn to delta 3. And you see, this pawn on delta 4 starts to be a real factor in the position. You can of course ask whether or not white can capture on delta 4. Echo takes delta 4 and knight takes delta 4. But opening the position in front of your king when you are lagging development, it hardly is such a good idea. So white's position is critical, and you don't have time to make, so to say, pseudo aggressive moves. Bravo 4, in a way, opens for the bishop to get to Bravo 2, but it takes 2 moves to get there. And do you really have time for it? I doubt it. And yeah, the pawn to Bravo 4, in the best of the worlds for white, you can continue with Bravo 5 and try to win the pawn on delta 4. But black also has some moves to play. So I continued with bishop to Golf 4. Bishop to Golf 4. And yeah, there are other moves you could do as well here. But yeah, it's still number 1 or 2 according to Stockfish. So pretty okay play by me, if I may say so myself, up to this point. Bishop to Golf 4. That is developing a piece with tempo. You threaten the queen on delta 1. And the bishop goes to Echo 2. Bishop to Echo 2. You might wonder why not pawn to Foxtrot 3. But such even another pawn move for white, that would be very dangerous. You would just get more weaknesses in your position. And even if white would maybe win a pawn on delta 4, if black gets such a big lead in development, that would matter more than the pawn, I would say. I don't remember how I calculated exactly. It is 38 years since I played the game. But I think I just relied on far better development in general. So I can even retreat the bishop. Maybe one could even think of sacrificing the piece on Golf 4 with rook to Echo 8, Foxtrot takes Golf 4, and then maybe taking on Echo 3 with the pawn now or after having moved the queen. That would be possible maybe, but we don't dwell deeply into this position. I think we can rely on the principles here, and that is I try to rely on more general principles now in the channel to not make the videos 2 hours long or something, and also to make the main points clearer. Foxtrot 3 would mean pushing a pawn again and neglecting development. So bishop Echo 2 is the move for choice, and that was played as well. And then we exchange bishops. Bishop takes Echo 2. Bishop takes Echo 2. And white recaptured. Queen takes Echo 2. Queen takes Echo 2. Now white has developed a queen and, yeah, almost developed, or how I should call it, the knight on Alpha 2. But note that the knight on Alpha 2 has no squares to go to. Bravo 4, there is a pawn. Charlie 1, there is a bishop. Charlie 3 is covered, at least just for now. So white doesn't have a lot of activity. And I continued with knight to Echo 5. Knight to Echo 5. This is a good move. You could play pawn to Delta 3 first, but knight to Echo 5 will transpose into it. Yeah, here you might ask, can't white just take on Delta 4? Echo takes Delta 4. No, that's not such a good idea. Black would capture. Queen takes Delta 4. And if you would play bishop to bravo 2, bishop to bravo 2 after black captures on delta 4 with the queen, then black can take on bravo 2. Queen takes bravo 2, white recaptures, queen takes, and then knight delta 3 check, regaining the queen with a piece up. And such luck in the position, so to say, luck in quotation marks, occurs when you have a better position. Sound position will lead in development. Such tactical motifs will show up. So that is a kind of rule of chess as well. Knight to e5 was played. And white played castles kingside. Castles kingside. Eventually getting the king into safety. And I pushed pawn to delta 3. Pawn to delta 3. And a thing that is worth keeping in mind is that a central pawn that advances to the 6th rank, if we count from black side now, so the 3rd rank, rank 3 is actually the 6th from black's perspective. Two ranks from promotion. Such a pawn is worth a lot. Some would say it's even worth a minor piece. It depends, of course, on the actual position, but it is really a strong power to be reckoned with. So, according to Stockfish, black is somewhere up between 3 and 4 pawns here. Just after 15 moves, and it looks weird because white hasn't done so many strange things. But I've tried to explain what has happened. And it is such things that can really make you improve when you start to keep to those principles, the foundations of chess. Then you will also get the positions, advantageous positions against fairly strong opponents without them having seemingly have made no mistakes. And that is what we are seeing here. So, white played queen to delta 1, queen to delta 1. And black played knight to Charlie 4, knight to Charlie 4. And this is, of course, a very nice position for the black knight. It can easily be protected by bravo 5 with the pawn or rook to Charlie 8, and it covers delta 2 and bravo 2. Delta 2 makes it easier for the pawn to advance even to the next rank from delta 3, and it also makes it difficult for white to develop the bishop on Charlie 1. It can go to delta 2, of course, but black can continue with, for example, knight to echo 4, putting even more pressure on the black squares in the white camp. We will see how the game develops. White plays rook to bravo 1, rook to bravo 1. And that is, to make it possible to develop the bishop to bravo 2. Note that had the bishop gone to delta 2 immediately, black probably could have captured on alpha 3, taking a pawn for free, maintaining the advantage. So rook to bravo 1 protects bravo 2, but it also makes it possible for white to start attacking the pawn on delta 3 by rook bravo 3. I continue development, queen to delta 7, queen to delta 7. And here again, note, keep it simple. If possible, keep it simple. We now connect the rooks on the 8th rank. That is a good thing. And the queen covers more squares from delta 7. it makes it possible, for example, as we see in the game in the future, black can play the knight from Foxtrot 6 to Golf 4, jumping into the center and Echo 5 again. But also it makes it easier to protect the pawn on Delta 3 by Rook Foxtrot Delta 8, and you can later on also put the Alpha Rook on Charlie 8. Natural developing moves. That is the name of the game. So, white went Rook to Bravo 3. Rook to Bravo 3. And black played Rook Foxtrot to Delta 8. Rook Foxtrot to Delta 8. And white went Knight to Charlie 3. Knight to Charlie 3. Well, little bit joking. White develops the knight again to Charlie 3. Yeah, but it's not easy for white to find good moves when you have such a cramped position. Also, let us think in terms of space. Black has a big space advantage. Okay, white has a pawn on Bravo 4. That is the most advanced body in the white camp. But black has the pawn on Delta 3, a knight on Charlie 4. That's a big difference. So I continue with Delta 2. Pawn to Delta 2. Then we gain even more space. I think Rook Alpha to Charlie 8 would that be at least as powerful actually. But pawn to Delta 2, I thought it was a concrete way to gain even more space, and now the pawn is just one rank from promotion. White plays Bishop to Bravo 2, Bishop to Bravo 2, and we have the exchange of bishops. Knight takes Bravo 2, Knight takes Bravo 2, and Rook takes Bravo 2. Rook takes Bravo 2. Here we can sum up a little bit to see what has happened. White has developed a knight and the rook on Bravo 2, plus white has castled. Black has centralized the queen and the rook on the Delta file, has a knight on Foxtrot 6, and can easily develop the other rook to Charlie 8. Whereas it is difficult for white to develop the pieces, getting a lot of activity, because white all the time needs to keep an eye on the Delta pawn so that it doesn't get to Delta 2. So these factors actually lead to the evaluation of the position that black is winning, not just better, winning actually. I played Rook Alpha to Charlie 8, Rook Alpha to Charlie 8. Still I play more or less the best moves according to Stockfish. Bit surprising to myself, I would say. And white played Rook to Bravo 3. Rook to Bravo 3. Protecting the knight. Here I played Knight to Golf 4. Knight to Golf 4. Which is not at all the best move. It keeps the advantage for black. Black is up about 0.9 pawns according to Stockfish. But there was a far better move. If I instead had played Rook to Charlie 4, I would have won on the spot. Because when I then continue with Rook Delta Charlie 8, black can easily then penetrate with the rooks. Let's think of black plays Rook to Charlie 4 instead of Knight Golf 4. Let's say that white just gives some luft to the king by playing Hotel 3. And then we go Rook Delta Charlie 8. White cannot protect the knight by queen alpha 1, for example, because then we just give up the exchange on Charlie 3. Rook takes Charlie 3, rook takes Charlie 3, rook takes Charlie 3, queen takes Charlie 3, and black will then promote delta 1 queen, and black is easily winning up material. So the knight has to move to alpha 2 or to echo 2. But let's see, so I don't commit a mistake. Yeah, black can then play rook to Charlie 1 actually. Rook to Charlie 1 after either of these moves, and if knight takes Charlie 1, delta takes Charlie 1, promoting to a queen. So doubling on the Charlie file was by far the better choice for black. So here I made quite a big error, I would say. Okay, knight to golf 4 is not the most stupid move I have ever played. I have done far worse than that, I assure you. But rook to Charlie 4 was better. So I learned a little bit about this when analyzing the game now. Knight to golf 4 comes with the idea of putting that knight on Charlie 4, safeguarding the pawn on delta 2. So, white played pawn to hotel 3, pawn to hotel 3, which I followed up with knight to echo 5, knight to echo 5. So now the knight is on its way to Charlie 4. And black plays, white plays knight to echo 2, knight to echo 2. And I played rook Charlie 6, rook to Charlie 6. I recall I had some problems really understanding during the game how I would finish the game off. But rook to Charlie 6 is not such a bad idea. The rook can swing over to golf 6, for example, and take part in a kingside attack. It can also go to delta 6, and it is not far-fetched that if white puts a knight on delta 4, I think black can often just sack the exchange there and then get a pawn for the exchange and continue with the pawn on delta 2. I think it is quite ample compensation for the exchange. So, rook to Charlie 6. White played pawn to foxtrot 4, and that is clearly a blunder. Let's think of first, let's use our imagination. Imagine the pawn is instead of foxtrot 2, and white played knight to delta 4. Then I had a quite good idea in mind, I would say. Rook to delta 6. Rook to delta 6. The rook was threatened. And if white then plays queen takes delta 2, queen takes delta 2, I had a piece sacrifice. Knight takes foxtrot 3 check. Knight takes foxtrot 3 check. Use your imagination. You have your queen on delta 2, the knight on delta 4, and black jumps in with the knight on foxtrot 3. We have the rook on delta 6. If white takes knight, then black plays rook takes delta 2, winning the queen. If white plays golf takes foxtrot 3, then black wins on the spot with queen takes hotel 3. And white can do nothing about black's threat of playing rook to golf 6 checkmate. So this is a tactical motif that I recommend that you keep in mind. So knight to delta 4, rook to delta 6 would keep white under severe pressure. That's for sure. So it is about a pawn up for black, even that. But foxtrot 4, as white played, also seriously weakens the position. It resembles the problem that I discussed in relation to White's pawn move Bravo 4 earlier in the game. When you have almost no development. Okay, now we have exchanged a lot of pieces. Why do I say no development? I do it because most of White's pieces remain on the first 2 ranks. You have very little activity. So when your pieces are poorly placed, then you should try to you should try to diminish the number of weaknesses you have in your position. Remember that, that's very important and often neglected. Foxtrot 4 feels better for White to play maybe. You do something aggressive, you actually is doing something in the game. You are so far just been booted around by Black, and you were White. You were expected to have an advantage in the opening, and you were just running knight to alpha 2 and had problems even getting castled. So Foxtrot 4 is understandable from the psychological point of view, no doubt, but it is weakening the pawn on echo 3, and that weakness makes it even more difficult for White to maintain a knight on delta 4 in the future. And the knight on delta 4 would be the only well-placed piece in White's position. So, like I discussed, knight delta 4, rook delta 6. Black might even consider giving up the exchange for a pawn on delta 4, so getting rid of the only well-placed piece. That is really not such a stupid idea by Black. But if you have weakened echo 3, you can also, considering you jump with your knight to Charlie 4, and would there pop up a knight on delta 4, you can even probably take on echo 3, because then the knight on delta 4 would be unprotected. So even if you sack a piece on echo 3, you will regain the piece on delta 4. So that is the conceptual explanation to why Foxtrot 4 is a serious blunder. And now, White is clearly lost again. So I played knight to Charlie 4. Knight to Charlie 4. Threatening echo 3, which is okay, it's protected right now, but White plays rook to Foxtrot 3, which is a dangerous move to play. Understandable, but dangerous, because now you move the rook from the first rank. That means that the sole piece that now makes it difficult for Black to promote the delta pawn is White's queen, whereas Black has 2 heavy pieces on the delta 5 and can even triple. So it is a risky thing to move the rook up. I played queen to delta 5, queen to delta 5, and here I don't think I played absolutely the best moves, but no, not bad moves either. They are okay, I would say. Black now has motifs like moving the knight from Charlie 4, then sacrificing the queen on Bravo 3, because then when White's queen is recaptured, Black can promote delta 1 queen, and you will be up material. So it puts up a little more trouble, troubles for White, and we are now also getting into time pressure. We are on move 26, and I think White started to be seriously low on time here, which is quite understandable because White has struggled to find good moves all since after that unfortunate knight takes Charlie 3. Was it on move 9 or so, I think, which gave black the control in the center. All right, white played king to hotel 2, king hotel 2. And I played knight to bravo 6, knight to bravo 6. Now you see the threat, queen takes bravo 3 is there, because after queen takes bravo 3, black can play pawn to delta 1. So, white has to do something about the delta file. He plays knight delta 4, knight to delta 4. And I play rook Charlie to delta 6, rook Charlie to delta 6. From a practical point of view, I think I did not do too bad here. Black was also, I was also getting a bit low on time, and we have no increment. But then just triple on the delta file and see what happens. Putting up some small threats like this queen takes bravo 3 things is also a good thing to do, and then you can continue improving the position, jumping back with a knight to Charlie 4, for example. Comes into mind, and you have these threats on knight takes echo 3 later on, when the knight on delta 4 would be undermined. So, but here white committed a big blunder. I hope you forgive me for showing this game, but I think it had a lot of things to teach, not only me, but even other players. Here white has a clearly inferior position. It is lost by Stockfish. Black just continues with such moves like knight Charlie 4. You can even give love to your own king by playing hotel 5, maybe in the future hotel 4, gaining space. But yeah, you can play golf 6 also, if you don't want to play it that fancy. And that is also very good. Golf 6, knight Charlie 4 and golf 6. It is very difficult for white to find a way to keep the position together. According to Stockfish, the threats are so many so that white has to give up material pretty soon, sacrificing the exchange on delta 2, and yeah, black simply has a 1 position, being the exchange for a pawn up, but in an open position where black's heavy pieces are well placed, so it would be an easy win. But Fesche made it easier for me, because now he took the pawn on delta 2. Queen takes delta 2. Queen takes delta 2. And, of course, I played queen takes bravo 3. Queen takes bravo 3. And white resigned, because if you take back on bravo 3, black plays rook takes delta 2. Knight takes delta 2 and rook takes delta 2 again, and black is simply a piece up for a pawn. So it is natural that white chose to call it a day instead. So what we can take with us from this game, I would say, are some rules of thumb. Here we had a strong player, but he gave up the center. He let me play pawn to delta 4, and his knight was kicked out to alpha 2. What then happened was simply that I could continue with quick development and even manage to push the pawn down to delta 3. Next stage was doubling on the delta file, queen to delta 7 or fox to delta 8, combined with transferring the knight from Charlie 6 via echo 5 to Charlie 4. When we come to that situation, black is actually, according to Stockfish, up about 3 pawns. Because the pawn on delta 3 is such a strong pawn. Then, as the game continued, I pushed the pawn to delta 2, even when I had to exchange my lovely knight on Charlie 4 for the bishop on Bravo 2. That was all fine, as I could continue with pressure on the Charlie file and delta file. Played rook Alpha Charlie 8, which was good. Later on, instead of continuing with this knight maneuver to Golf 4, Echo 5 to Charlie 4, we still kept black on top. I could have won quickly and brutally by doubling on the Charlie file, because the pawn on delta 2 would then promote, or white had to give up a lot of material. So, what then happened is that white, instead of continue suffering, being about 0.9 pawns down, wanted to do something aggressive and pushed Foxtrot 4 and played Rook Foxtrot 3. That gave up some of the control of the first rank, which means the promotion square of the black pawn on delta 2, and also gave white yet another weakness on Echo 3. In such positions, don't take extra weaknesses. Try to reduce material and keep it as solid as possible, hoping for your opponent to commit an error, because that also happens many times. But weakening the pawn on Echo 3 by playing Foxtrot 4 makes it more difficult to maintain the knight on delta 4. So black could just triple on the delta file, push the knight on Charlie 4 if so needed, and then there would be threats like knight takes Echo 3, regaining the piece on delta 4 also. So these are the things that I can sum up from the game. And most of all, play natural moves. Don't jump around with the same pieces too much. Sorry for stating the obvious, but as you saw, it was not so obvious for a strong player like white on about 2100. Thank you for watching.